Hello, everybody. Welcome to PAX Online, and thanks for joining us at this 5 Ways into the Games Industry panel. I'm delighted to be joined by 4 industry veterans, young industry veterans, to talk about the games industry today, to talk a little bit about our experiences, which vary wildly of how we ended up in the games industry, and share just a little bit of input on how the games industry is a very special and unique audience, or a special and unique industry to get into. Just to share a little bit about myself, I'm Christopher Wulf. I'm the publishing director for Romania, a Romanian-based developer / publishing hybrid, those awesome guys. And yeah, let's get it started with a round of introductions. Dylan, if you want to go ahead.
Alrighty, I can go. Hi, I'm Dylan Claussen. I'm 16 years old, and I'm from Seattle, Washington in the US. And I got into games from this camp called Girls Make Games. It's all over the US, and I think outside the US too. And it's basically like an intro course to games for girls, and you like make a game as a prototype. And I've been attending that camp for 7 years now, I think, and it's given me a passion for games that I want to pursue.
All right.
Yes. Hey, so I'm George Perkins, and I run a company called Super Rare Games. And basically, Super Rare Games specialize in releasing physical copies of Switch games. So we basically help very small indie developers and indie publishers who might not have the funding and the resources to actually make a physical boxed edition. And we work with them to basically help monetize the game and actually get a physical copy in front of a new audience that maybe they wouldn't have reached before. And I'm 22 and based in
London. I'm Henning. I'm 23 years old, and about 5-6 years ago, I joined an indie studio in Hamburg called THREAKS as a high school internship. For a high school internship thing, and then kind of stayed there and ended up working in the game industry.
Hi, I'm Limpho. I am the producer and business developer for an indie studio in South Africa called Nyamakop. We make African-inspired games for a global audience. I'm 29 years old, and this is my 4th year in the gaming industry. Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Thanks, everyone. I think the most interesting question overall when it comes to young professionals or young teenagers wanting to break into the games industry is how do you even take the first step? Like for all of you, I'm curious, did you ever have a concrete plan of, hey, I wanted to do something in games, or even pursue that as a career? Or did it just sort of happen that you stumbled upon like a camp or an internship or like a full-time position?
I stumbled into my full-time position in games. I'd always loved and played games as a kid, but I studied film and screenwriting at university, and I wanted to go into the film industry, where I worked there for about a year. And some friends of mine in a different city told me about an opportunity to be a PA for a game studio, and I honestly just jumped at the opportunity. And once I started, I realized that this industry was where I needed to be, and it ignited a huge passion for me.
Yeah, so I think for me as well, I think it was, I just grew up playing video games, and I kind of was always told throughout my life that, do what you enjoy and kind of follow that. Don't really care about, studying this or doing this to go into this, if that makes sense. It was always just do what you enjoy. And so when I was about 14, 15, I started making, maybe a bit younger, I started making little games. I used to have projects at school, and I used to make these video games as my project. And rather than writing, a big essay, I'd make a video game and give it to them. I used to always get really bad marks in them because I think the teachers didn't really appreciate it. I spent, a very long time doing it, but that was kind of my gateway into that. And I just realized that this is what I love, and I wanted to, surround myself with really passionate people who just love video games as much as me. So yeah, for me, it was just always this kind of underlying passion for video games and just wanting to pursue that, really.
Henning, Dylan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, for me, it pretty much, I think I always wanted to make video games. So I have always been playing video games, and I was interested into drawing little, stop motion video things when I was, little. And then at some point I started up with friends just making up video games when I was 6 or something. And then with 11, 12 or something, I stumbled over a tool called Game Maker, which lets you click together games without much programming. I don't know, George, if that's the one you also used.
Yeah, I use Game Maker. That's what I was not in, yeah. gaming.
Yeah, I think that's what brought a lot of people into games, and then just started making things with that, and then started learning programming and so on. But I think the idea that I want to make video games was kind of always there.
I mean, for you, Dylan, oh, sorry, go ahead.
You're good. For me, I was also just really interested in video games from a young age because I grew up during like the Wii era, so that was like a big thing for my family. We did a lot of like family gaming. Like we watched my dad play all of Zelda. It was just a fun experience. So I've always been like kind of interested. And then, as I said before, Girls Make Games kind of really made me realize that that was a thing you could do as a job. So from that camp, I kind of, since like even 7 years ago, I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, this is what I want to pursue. And then as we moved through the years, I started realizing like what in the industry I wanted to try to do. And so that was really where that came along.
Sweet. Is the games industry something that all of you consider something that you could see yourself even 20 years from now, or something that you're pursuing at the moment and you'll sort of see where things lead to?
Yeah, I think just for me, I can't imagine myself not being in the industry. I think it's for me so ingrained into it. Like I think it's such a, like for me, it's the idea you come to work every day and it doesn't feel like work. I feel like I've never worked a day in my life. I feel like I'm around people who just love video games and are so passionate about it. So to imagine myself not in the industry, I just can't imagine it really. I think having done work experience at school at different industries, it just was like, that's not for me. You know, for me, I have to walk into work and just have everyone around me who's just as enthusiastic and just wants to talk about video games and stuff. So yeah, for me, I can't imagine that.
I'm too far along in my plans for world domination in the gaming industry to quit and go into a different industry. So, I'm kidding, no. I honestly can't imagine being in any industry except video games. I think that it's beyond just being a passion. I think it's just such a great instrument for experimentation and creative growth. And I can't see that same kind of creativity and youth almost of an industry anywhere else. So I don't see the point in being in any industry that isn't making games. I don't think it would be as enjoyable, as challenging, or as interesting.
Yeah, kind of same. What would I even do? This is kind of yeah, it feels like, I don't know, especially like this time of like not being physically at these events kind of made me realize how much I enjoy this kind of like video game developer community. So yeah, I don't think I would want to like work without this kind of surrounding. It's just such a nice place. If I'm honest,
it's a little bit of a cult. You come into it, you fall in love with it, and you just struggle to interact with the outside world once you've been around game developers and the industry for a little too long. So I don't even know if I could go into any other industry. Not that I'd want to.
I think one very interesting aspect about the games industry as a whole is how connected it is to different forms of entertainment. Like myself, I really would like to get an opportunity to have something to do with the music industry further down the road, but the video games industry being in a form of entertainment that's just interconnected with any other form of entertainment these days, or at least has the possibility to do so, will open up so many opportunities for us further down the road to even experiment in very closely connected industry while never potentially leaving the games industry.
Yeah, I guess. Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I agree. That's just. Oh. Sorry.
Just
I think it's just so fun to have that experience to like experiment with like different things, because like as I said, at Girls Make Games, we get to like make the drawings ourselves, like do the art, and then do the sound and like do the actual programming, and it's just fun to get to experiment with everything.
For potential listeners that don't know too much about Girls Make Games, could you maybe share like one or two sentences about what that camp usually looks like?
Yeah, for sure. It's usually like 20 or 30 girls. They have locations all over the US. And it's like a 3-week camp. And the first week you spend like learning about how the programs work, because you've used various programs throughout the years. But like this year we used Construct 3 and we were online. So we spend like the first week learning, and then the second week you get placed in teams and you start to brainstorm a game idea with your team. And then the next 2 weeks, those last 2 weeks, you work with your team to make a prototype of the game, which is then submitted to Girls Make Games HQ. And then if your game is selected, then they make it into a like playable game, like a full game, and release it on Steam. So that's fun.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful camp, and overall, over the years, what Layla and the team have built is definitely phenomenal and impressive. I noticed while sort of getting this panel together and just taking some notes on all the individuals here, how there's a certain aspect that I may not have thought about that well is being example when it comes to sort of the path of education. As far as I remember, Henning, myself, George, the three of us do not share a bachelor's degree. Is that accurate?
No.
Yeah, so my highest education was...
Perfect.
I don't. I'm saying me too.
Oh, you don't? Oh, sorry, my bad.
No.
Okay.
I just look very educated.
You do look very educated. You feel very educated. But yeah, I was planning on going to university or college and studying maths. There's a university here called Cambridge, which is like a very big one here, and I really wanted to go there to do maths. And I kind of took a gap year, just wanted to see what would happen in a year, and then ended up never going just because I realized actually, what does a piece of paper mean when it comes to video games? Like, how does that change my thing? And I think just even now as an employer as well, and I look at, when I'm hiring, I never look, like, it's almost like a last question in an interview is, oh wait, did you go to university, or did you study something, or what have you done? I just ask it out of curiosity, not as a definitive thing to separate a candidate. If someone comes to me with a really good degree but no passion, it's like, what's the point? I'd rather someone says I've been making really small prototypes for the last 4 years and not done anything with it, but just been showing that passion. That's all I care about. A piece of paper literally is insignificant. So yeah, that's my view on it at least.
To speak on that, I am also of the belief that it's less about whether or not you have a degree, but whether or not you have a strong portfolio and you've self-taught to a degree, or you have a passion for it. So the studio I work for, Nyamakop, we have what we like to call a growth mindset, where we like to see the potential and talent in people, and we'll actively help them skill up in whatever way we can. If this is what they want to do and they have the passion for it, the talent, and they can show that they're self-starting and work for themselves. So that's a very important part. On the other hand, surprisingly enough, South Africa has a few game development courses. And as someone who didn't complete my bachelor's but studied film and screenwriting, I can see the value in learning those modes of thinking and going through a course like that. But it's important to know that it's not necessary. It's not mandatory. It can be an additional benefit, but don't stress out if you haven't gone to university for game design. This is a creative industry to a degree. And it's very much about, depending on which part of the industry you want to go into, do you show passion for that? Do you have skills geared towards that? Are you willing to start and learn and work really hard to achieve those goals? And if the answer is yes, then you're more likely to get hired than if you have a fancy smancy degree from Cambridge or Oxford. Sorry, yeah, I like to dunk on Cambridge and Oxford.
Yeah, for me, the situation... Sorry.
That's all you go.
For me, the situation was kind of that I started, as I said, like I applied for an internship at this indie studio, and they were like, hey, like 2-week high school internship doesn't really make sense for them, but I could just work there like in my free time a bit, because at that point I could already do Unity, and I was already somewhat okay of a programmer, I would say, like looking back at it now. So I basically worked there, like I was at high school and then kind of worked there at the same time. And at some point it was really just, okay, this one thing like is so much more interesting and also, you know, pays money. So I was at some point just like, okay, maybe education is kind of not the path for me. Yeah, and then like at last, like when I was at, I don't know, the first Gamescom, which luckily was during like high school vacation, like high school, like how do you say, like summer vacation? Summer holidays, whatever.
Yeah, summer vacation, same thing.
Yeah, so basically I was there and seeing all of that and was like, hey, maybe this is cooler than, maybe Gamescom and game industry is cooler than high school. And then kind of, yeah, that was kind of the decision at that point. I guess in hindsight, the only thing I guess you really have to consider is that like getting into the US, for example, if I would want to work for like a US company would be super, super difficult. I mean, it's always difficult to get like a visa outside of it's always difficult to get visas, but without any kind of academic background, it's next to impossible, I think. So I guess that's the only thing to consider from my side. And yeah, if we are hiring, then we never. Sorry.
You never
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I just want to jump into that sort of visa point, which I think is a very good point, particularly if you're coming from developed states or from Asia or Africa. Even if the degree won't get you a job necessarily, it's also a huge benefit to have for visas, as Henning stated, but also, you know, a lot of the industries in the developing nation are still growing, so we don't have the capacity as of yet to take in all the graduates. But you can get game adjacent degree jobs if you do game design or if you do computer science, and still be able to work on games in your spare time and find a way to turn it into a career long term, versus expecting that straight out of university you're going to end up at a gaming studio necessarily. It also depends on where in the world you are for you to make that decision as to whether or not it's beneficial to study. Because I mean, you do make a lot of contacts as well, and I think network to a degree is an important part of the gaming industry.
Yeah, I guess
find those spaces, even if it's not university.
I guess studying also just gives you, I mean, if you study games, then you just have 3 years where you're expected to to learn about making games. Mm. So I guess that just is a lot of time that you can use. So I definitely don't want to say that it's a bad idea to study or discourage anyone from that. And I mean, in Hamburg, where I live, for example, the university has a games course, and they basically spit out 1 indie studio per semester on average, I think. So that's really cool. All those people made the right decision. But for hiring, it's not like you hire people because of a degree.
Yeah, but I think as well, I guess I can't talk from first-hand experiences, but I guess you meet other like-minded people, and that kind of networking is really good. I think just from my experience living in the UK is, you know, it costs £9,000 to go to university, which is, so that's, I think, again, one of the reasons which didn't encourage me to do that. I think there's no rush in life to do things. So I think if it's not a massive financial burden, then I can see the benefit definitely. I think the point that we're making is it's not needed. I think if you can show passion in other ways and show experience and doing things and teaching yourself and just a general love for video games, then I think that always goes further than having a piece of paper. With that said, I still think, I think you can do both and still do very well. But yeah, at least that's my perspective on things.
I'm trying really hard not to go into a rant about how a lot of games courses don't focus on production and a lot of the business aspects of game design, and it drives me crazy. So if that's something you're really interested in, a games degree may not necessarily be the best thing. It's also about figuring out what it is you want to be doing in gaming and how you can get the best experience for what it is you want to do within the industry.
Yeah. I think an interesting point on that as well. I think the video games industry has so many different career paths. It's not just about making a game. It's, you know, making a game itself has so many things, but then the extra parts. My experience has always been in kind of publishing and sort of production and marketing, and those things are not necessarily things you traditionally think about a video game. It's, you know, even, you know, things like, you know, community management, QA testing, all these different things that you just don't consider are just all different career paths. And I can imagine, I haven't done much time looking in kind of game design courses, but I presume they're not very touched on. So yeah, I completely agree. I think, you know, game design and making a game is such a, you know, is a massive fundamental part of the industry, but there are these other things that come out of it that I think are all, you know, extremely good careers as well.
Yeah, I think so as well. I've started taking to referring to myself as a game developer because, while I'm not tech, I don't code or make art. I'm still like, production is still a vital part of creating the game and ensuring it gets out before you run out of money, or that you have money to make it. So I think it's also really important, as you to highlight the different career paths within gaming and the different ways in which you can access the industry, get involved in the industry, and make a full career out of it.
think you're bringing up a very
So,
very interesting topic, especially on how to figure out where your space in the games industry may be. With Dylan, sorry for going back to you, but I think you may have a very interesting perspective on this since you're still in high school and figuring out if the games industry may be something you want to pursue later on, and if so, in even which direction within the games industry you may want to pursue, since it has such a wide spectrum of jobs. Is that something that either throughout your personal life or throughout the Girls Make Games camps you've been able to get a better understanding of?
Yeah, actually, I've been spending a while trying to figure out like where in the games industry I want to go, because I do know that I want to work in the games industry. And like this year specifically, I took a AP Computer Science course at my school, so that kind of really like we learned a lot of like programming knowledge, and that made me really excited. I liked programming a lot, so that's probably where I want to go, because it's just like fun to like have things work, because once they work, it's just like wow, and like even if they're not working, it's fun to like try to figure it out and get there. But yeah, and it's been a long time to try to like figure out like where in the industry. And like, I don't know, I get promoted like colleges a lot. Like that's something I get told a lot. Like you need to go to college, like you need to do this. So it's like cool to hear there's like other options too. And like, it's also cool because since like making video games and like programming and like art and like game design is such like an online thing, because it's like video games, there's a lot of online resources too. I've learned like just communities online and like YouTube, so it's cool that there's so many places to learn as well, and that's something I've been exploring too.
That's a perfect transition. So about networking and communities, especially during times like 2020, where all of us have been stuck at home, the pandemic is still ongoing. Well, very much likely will still be ongoing once this panel is published during PAX Online in September. We're all sort of stuck in a situation where what used to be the perfect networking opportunity, or just getting to know other people and getting your foot into the door, meeting in person at events or meetups or so on, has sort of vanished. Is there anything particular, any tips all of you might be able to share on how to learn about the games industry and how to reach new people?
I am at pains to say this, but Twitter, a lot of the online spaces are great places to find other game developers and find a sense of community. In South Africa, we've got the Make Games South Africa website, we've got a Discord channel, a Facebook group, sort of ways to keep in contact, and a lot of our meetings have moved online, which, while I miss meeting people in real life, it is also a lot more accessible when it's online. It's safer because you're in your own home. It's easier to meet a wider group of people. And I know for me, I've definitely gained access to a lot of opportunities because events are online. So you no longer have to worry about flight tickets and hotel stays and traveling around a lot, which makes it a lot easier to connect with people. And I think the other thing is to also just be very open to meeting new people. I think it can be difficult to try and make friends and to talk to people. So I guess this is a great time to talk about the games industry gathering.com. If you're a professional, it's a great tool to have, because you can meet so many people who can either become mentors, or you can just discuss struggles within the industry, or just make friends and have a good time. So I think networking can be quite important, and I do think there is a lot of benefit to it being online in terms of access.
Yeah, I think just to touch on that as well, I usually meet people online before I meet them in person, which is weird, because if I think about my social life, it's completely the opposite, which I guess makes sense. But for me, I think one thing I realized is that everyone's very approachable, even if they seem like they're hard to get in contact with. They usually can be, even just an email. If I were to ever receive an email from someone I didn't know asking a really genuine question, I would always reply. I think asking for advice or asking for feedback or asking for anything, I think is always good, as long as you're not doing that in like a pestering way and constantly nagging them and stuff. But I think a really genuine question or interest, or even just complimenting someone, I think is really can go a long way. I think once you get into the industry, I think it then becomes a bit easier, and it's kind of, you can talk about mutual interest. I mean, with me personally, the work I do at the moment is all business related, so it's always reaching out to new publishers and exploring opportunities there, and that becomes quite easy because things like Twitter, things like email become quite easy like that. So I can't talk necessarily from a development perspective, but I definitely think that's my main thing is everyone is actually really approachable. Everyone in video games is usually just a really nice person who likes making video games, and you messaging them randomly is going to be completely fine as long as it's done in an appropriate way. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Speaking of advice and mentorship, is that something that you were able to sort of tap into yourself while you were trying to get your foot in the door?
Is it me personally having a mentor or the other way around?
A mentor or someone you should just generally go to someone to get advice?
Not particularly, really. I think for me, at least now, the position I'm in, which is very fortunate, I've tried to do the opposite and be a mentor to people. So it's quite a lot of university students that I kind of taken under my wing and sort of offer advice for them during kind of development and stuff, which has been good. But yeah, I think, yeah, not particularly the other way around.
How about everyone else here?
I think not one specific mentor, but just like a lot of, if I think about it now, there's like, I don't know, probably like a lot of people you meet at different events. You have like, I don't know, that person you had that 1 hour conversation with at, I don't know, 2 in the morning that taught you so much about like how to approach your job or how to think about the industry. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't point out a specific mentor, but there's a lot of people who gave me, I don't know, like, yeah, just a lot of insight. And I guess, so yeah, I guess you just like, once you're in the industry, you kind of meet those people at least, if not a like specific one mentor person. Yeah.
That's a really good point, actually, because I think in my head, when we were talking about like the idea of a mentor, I think it's almost like some person that you just go to for everything. But that's a really, really good way of putting it, actually, is that everyone has massive knowledge that, I think it's good to sort of approach different people with different things. And again, as you said, it might just be a conversation at a bar at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
But I think everyone has, and this is what's so good about the industry is about, I think just in life in general, is there's always going to be someone that really knows such a specific topic better than you. And it's about how can you use that information and help you grow as a person.
Yeah.
I mean, I've oh, sorry.
No, you go. I was going to say is that I think I've probably gone to Chris for advice at some point because there's things that Chris knows better than me and stuff. So I think it's like that.
And vice versa.
Yeah. I definitely have a handful of people that I go to for advice. I think, especially if you're a woman or a person of color, it's useful to have people who are willing to open doors for you and to give you advice, because a lot of the time I think there are a lot of talented people, but it can be very difficult in the beginning to access those networks and to access people who can give you advice. So I've been very fortunate that I have, a few people that if I'm confused about something or I need advice or just letting me know about opportunities, that I can reach out to them, I can talk to them and use that to grow as a person. So hopefully I can pass the buck forward, not pass the buck forward, you know what I mean? Open the door for the next person and be a mentor for them as well. What about you, Dylan? What has your experience been as a youth?
Yeah, not actually. Since I'm not like in the industry, like working in games, it's like a little bit harder to access like people who because I'm not surrounded. But teachers and counselors and just like older people that I meet who are in the industry are usually very open to questions. Like I know at my school, my teacher would always accept questions, like just about anything. And like at Girls Make Games, the counselors are always really open. And a lot of them are like college students. So it's nice to be able to ask them about college experiences and like what colleges they go to and like what they like about it. And just, yeah, meeting older people too, who are just like a little bit older than me in college, or like in the industry, to them about like what it's like or like advice. It's like, it's very helpful.
Perfect. So I hate to take this very positive topic and sort of turn it into a little bit more, not pessimistic, but a little bit more careful topic. Obviously, the games industry is a wonderful space 99% of the times, but there are here and there companies that tend to potentially maybe be looking out more for themselves than they may be looking out for other people. How do you make sure entering the industry, especially that you're getting something out of an opportunity, no matter if it's a job, an internship, as any form of opportunity, without just being taken advantage of, even in the worst case?
If a studio says that they are like a family, run away, run far, run fast, change your name. So I think the thing to be aware of is, for a lot of us, making games is something we're very passionate about. And it's something that we care deeply about. And unfortunately, there can be studios that can take advantage of that and make you work for much longer than you ought to, than is healthy for you. That will make you feel as though you're being disloyal if you're not putting your entire life into working for that studio. And I think when you reach that point, you should start to evaluate whether or not that's the best space for you. A lot of the time, companies will talk a lot about loyalty, and I generally am a little bit hesitant and use that as a bit of a red flag, because usually that loyalty means giving your all as an employee into that company without necessarily getting benefit back. I think that it's important that wherever you're working, you're ensured that you're being treated well, or at least as reasonably as possible. And if that's not happening where you are, even if you love the project, consider going to other places. You don't have to stay at one place forever. One place doesn't own you, doesn't own your talent. And if you feel that you are unheard, or you feel unseen, or you feel taken advantage of, don't be afraid to look for other opportunities if you can, because there are a lot more opportunities in the industry globally than I think most people realize in different spaces. So yeah, if they say that it's just like a family, you're not. It's like that toxic, terrible family that you never want to visit at Christmas. It's like that family.
Makes sense. I think as well, like, I mean, I think because we work in an industry that everyone is so passionate about, it's so easy to be exploited in that sense, because you're doing something that you do love. I think the best example is, you know, something you can see in AAA companies, you know, that almost expectation to work longer hours and to do more, because, and then you kind of almost justify in your head because, oh, I do love doing this, I do enjoy it. So you kind of, I think it's important to always, with any job, to separate that time for yourself and time for working. And as an employer, I would never ever expect anyone to, you know, it hits 5 o'clock and, you know, go home. Don't say, I want you to go and work. I want you to go home and do your things and not have to work and think about that. And as you said, I think there are so many opportunities that if you are in that toxic environment, it's important to see that. I think when you are in toxic environments, sometimes it's hard to see it. And that's why it's important to have people around you that are close to you. And again, I don't think this is the case. And at least from my experience, it's always been very positive. But these places definitely exist. You do hear about it. That's the thing, is to know your own worth, and to know that. I think, I mean, one of the things, at least for me, working in indie space, all my experience has been indie. I think from that, you realize that, I don't know, at least my experience with indie has been a lot better because it's not that corporate feel to it. Whereas I can imagine when you have a bit more of a corporate feel to it, there's a bit more of a, you know, less about caring about the game, but maybe caring more about the bottom line. I don't want to just, you know, generalize every company, because it's definitely not like that. But I think as soon as that corporate style comes back into it, then maybe that's where it can become a bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, as George says, please know your value, know your worth, because I think sometimes a toxic space can make you feel as though there is nowhere else to go, that your value is contingent on being with the studio, but oftentimes that is a lie. So always know your worth and what your time is worth as well. And if a place doesn't want to pay you that or show respect in certain forms, it is also okay to leave that place.
I must say,
you go.
Sorry. Yeah, I must say that, like in general, a narrative I heard from like different people who worked at different like problematic environments, I would say, is that like directly or kind of implicit, they say, hey, look, if you don't work here, you're not going to find another place in the industry, and that is like a very big red flag. And I mean, of course, it's also completely pointless, because if you wouldn't get a job anywhere else, why would they have hired you in the first place, or why would they keep working with you? But in general, it's just like, yeah, it's like if somebody implies, look, if you don't work for me, you won't, then run and get out of there.
something that unfortunately goes perfectly hand in hand with that is imposter syndrome. And it's something that throughout my entire career, I've been dealing with. Even to this day, it's something where every once in a while I just sit there and I'm like, oh, wow, this is like, maybe it's all just a stupid dream and I have absolutely no skill in what I'm doing. How do I deal with that? Is that something that once in a while you have to deal with yourself?
Yes.
yes, definitely.
Oh gosh. I'm still not entirely sure what I'm doing on this panel or any panel, or why people ask me to do talks, why people come to my talks, or I just, the imposter syndrome feels like it's less, when do I have imposter syndrome, and what are the few times I can count when I felt like I belonged somewhere, like I should be somewhere. I am a big advocate, if you can access it, I'm a big advocate for therapy. I think therapy can be very beneficial, even if it's just around work and how you feel about yourself. And I think that an important skill to have is to be able to celebrate your victories, big and small, because I think it's very easy to, especially if you're someone who wants to grow and get better at what you do, it's very easy to focus on where you've gone wrong and your mistakes and what you need to do better. But it's also important to take a step back and go, hang on, even if I made this mistake, I did other thing incredibly well. Of course, people want me on their panels and doing talks. I am gorgeous. You know, it's about finding, it's about finding, it's about being able to assess not only your weaknesses, but your strengths, and have pride in those strengths and keeping that balancing act of always wanting to grow and knowing where you need to grow, but not solely focusing on your shortcomings is the best you can do. And then if you can't do that, then you just have to fake it. You just have to push very hard to convince people that you know what you're doing, or have a mask that shows that you're a confident person, like right now.
Firstly, you definitely belong in this industry. It sounds like you're doing some amazing stuff. So yeah.
I mean,
everyone here. Yeah, I was gonna say everyone here. I'd say my perspective on it was definitely, I think I experienced it when I got into the industry when I was 18. And I think my age always felt like it was something that hindered me. It always felt like I would talk to people and they would almost look down at me because of my age. And I think it got to this point where, especially like, you know, I was 19 at GDC pitching to sort of quite big publishers. And it was always quite daunting. It's like, you know, these are kind of very corporate people and I'm here. I'm just some kid that has video games. But I think over time, I've come to realize my value in the industry. Not that I have much value, but I do have a place in the industry. And I think, again, not working in development explicitly, I think sometimes feel like you're not a game developer, but, you know, if you help in any way for a game to be either experienced by someone, whether that's marketing or actually the game being made, then you're a part of the industry. So I think over time I've become very, very self-confident in that sense.
A game developer.
Yeah, exactly. We're all game developers.
I think. Sorry.
No, you go.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say yes. I think I kind of feel like I've got that value now. I think again for me it was an age thing. I think that was one of the things that most got to me. And as soon as you realize, I think as soon as you earn someone's respect by realizing that age is literally just, you know, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily define who you are as a person. I think as soon as people realize that actually, whilst it is a niche, I'm good at what I do. So I think as soon as you kind of have that respect, then people see you differently, and I think it's been fine now. So I definitely think I've come out the other end of it, which I think is good. And I think the way I did that was just, you know, almost seeing it from a bigger perspective and seeing actually I'm working with games. I've been doing it for a while, and yeah. So I think it's a challenging one definitely, but I think it's important sometimes just to try and see it from a bigger perspective, as hard as that can be sometimes.
I think the game industry, because of the nature of this medium and because this industry is so young, also maybe that is why imposter syndrome is more common in this industry than other ones. At least I think like most people I know, if not all, have that to varying degrees. Because I don't know, like making a video game now is so much different to making a video game 10, 15 years ago. And I guess that it's way more, of course you have that in all entertainment, but I think it's more extreme in video games. And I mean, nobody has made Souls-likes for more than 10 years. Nobody has done this all their lives, kind of like, you know, just as an example. So I think like everybody is at least somewhat new to any topic they work on, I would say, because technology and the game design and like and the market is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
And something I read on Twitter the other day, and I wish I would remember by whom, is they wrote something like that they kind of channeled the imposter syndrome into something like the mad fake genius syndrome or something like that.
Yeah, like a con man. I've read that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're a con man that
syndrome,
it's great. You're fooling everyone. No one knows the truth.
Yeah.
You're a lot worse than people think you are, but look at you go. There's that. Look, I will also say that, you know, unfortunately, we're still in a place where being a woman or queer or a person of color can make you feel even more of an imposter, because I don't think we've reached parity within the industry yet. Unfortunately, not even in South Africa. I always say there are more white men named Ben than women of color in my industry, which is unfortunately a very accurate statement, as funny as it is. So that can also feed into it. But I realized very early on that no matter what the demographics, nobody can welcome you into gaming. Nobody can give you that gamer or game developer card. You just have to enter the space and act as though you belong there, because you do, because this is a space for everyone. And if you're working in this industry or doing anything within the industry, you belong here, it's your space. No one gets to take that away from you or welcome you or kick you or gatekeep it from you. It's yours. Just own it and take up that space.
100%.
People will love
fully
it.
agree.
Yeah.
Dylan, did you want to add anything to the imposter syndrome question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in a school environment, it can feel like a little bit different too, because like you're surrounded by people who are at similar levels sometimes. But also, like, I tend at my school, like, grades and like pressure is just a lot sometimes, like specifically just there's a lot of pressure on us all the time. So you definitely feel that a lot, and it's a little hard to just see everyone around you, because there's a lot of people in my school who like are really far ahead. So it's like a little intimidating sometimes. So in like a school setting or like a learning setting, I feel like it's important to, like, of course, realize like when you're falling behind, and like don't be afraid to ask questions and like talk to people and be like, ask questions and like try to learn more. But also, like, don't be super focused on like other people, or like place your worth on your grades or like how well you're doing in school, because like of course like that can be important, but it's definitely not like a defining trait, and like your grades do not define you as a person or define your worth. So like I feel like that's really important to remember, because I certainly struggle with that a little bit. So it's an important thing to realize, because it can be really hard to get over.
You're so wise for a 16-year-old. I'm so impressed.
I would
just to add. Oh my goodness. I feel so terrible about who I was at 16.
Same.
Just to add on to that, Dylan, I think that's really good advice. I think a thing that I came to accept, and I think that I find really freeing, is there's always going to be someone better than you. There's always going to be someone taller than you, skinnier than you, prettier than you, smarter than you, a better producer than you, a better game dev, further along in their career, much younger than you. There's always going to be someone better than you, and that's fine, because you're not in competition with other people in that sense. It's not about there being a roadmap to life and you have to reach X amount of goals before you reach Y age. You're on your own path and you're figuring it out yourself. And so what matters is being as true to yourself and as kind to yourself as possible. I think when dealing with imposter syndrome, that's vital, is that it's very easy to be understanding to what other people go through, and you need to give that same level of understanding to yourself and not worry too much about whatever it is everybody else is doing.
Can I throw in one more thing
I'm
about...
wise now. Now I'm wise.
Can I throw in one more thing about like being like young, I don't know, 18, 19, and like going into meetings and stuff like that? My experience talking to some industry people like now a few years later, it's because like when I was 18, I think I looked more like I was 14 or something. And I think at least some people who I over the years became friends with later kind of told me that, you know, they were like, hey, there's this person and he looks like he's, I don't know, he's in a meeting here, he looks like he's 16, but that doesn't make sense. But that probably means then that he just looks young and is like 28 or something. So I think, I don't know, I think like a lot of times, I don't know, like if people think you need to have a certain age and to be in a meeting like that, then people often like think, okay, then by that logic, that person is at that age. So I had that, I don't know, I had that a lot, that people just think then that you're older. because yeah, or they think young people can pitch to major publishers, and then it's also cool.
I fully agree. Oh, go ahead, Limpho.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing.
I was in a similar situation where for the longest time, even these days, like people, maybe I don't look like 14 anymore. I think like I'm reaching like 15, 16 level, which is good. That's something.
I was about to say you look 16.
Thank you. Perfect. See, it's getting better. But for the longest time, like in meetings, especially back when I was working with the Indie Mega Boost, people always thought like, I know someone's nephew or something like that, just sort of tagging along and having a good time. At the end of the day, like being at a young age in the industry also opens up such a big opportunity to impress other people. Not that that's relevant at the end of the day, but I think in no matter which age you enter the industry in, there's always a space for you. It's a very open industry. It comes down to what we talked about earlier on. It's about passion and wanting to work in games, and not about how young, how old, how experienced you may be when you first enter the games industry. There's plenty of examples of folks that sort of worked for the longest time in tech industries where they may be able to even make more money, which is unfortunately still reality of video games. We're not necessarily competing with the high-level tech industries, but at some point they maybe realize, hey, this is not for me. I would rather work on my passion project or for something I really have passion for, rather than make huge pots of money at the end of the day. Imposter syndrome generally is, simple, yeah.
Oh, no, I was about to rain on the parade a little bit, but it's fine. I'll wait until after your point's done for that. I think, while I do love games and it is an incredible industry, let's not just sell the rose-tinted version of the industry. It can be incredibly difficult. It can be incredibly demanding, and it can be hostile. Feels like a very strong word, but it also has the potential to be unfriendly. And I think it's good to be aware of that going in so that you're not surprised if that happens to you. And it doesn't mean that it's you attracting that kind of experiences. That is also just a part of the industry. And it's definitely growing and getting better and becoming more aware so that, as to how to treat people, especially younger people, how to create a safer, more inclusive environment. And so it's definitely a good thing that that's being worked on. But it can be very challenging and very difficult. So you also have to be prepared for that and to make sure that you take care of yourself first and foremost as you're going into this industry.
Very good point.
Debbie down and done.
Since we're now in the last 15 minutes, I wanted to sort of like open up the floor to have a little bit more of an open conversation. Is there any advice, one point of advice that you would that you would have loved to have received back when you were first trying to enter the games industry, that could have helped you, could have just been a warning, or overall just something valuable to know when you first took that leap of faith?
I think I just gave my advice.
Fair point.
Also, at some point, you're probably going to make a horrific mistake and fail terribly. It's okay. Everyone does. Nobody knows what they're doing. And just enjoy it, keep learning, keep growing, and trust in yourself. No one has any idea what they're doing. It's okay.
That's a good life advice as well. No one actually really has it all together yet. I think from my perspective, again, it's about everyone in the industry has all their different insights into things. I think it's so important to use who's around you and to use, the amount of times I ask for advice. I mean, I'm still obviously very young and still growing as a person, but there's always someone out there who has a different perspective on things. And it's so important to use that information, just not take yourself too seriously as well. I think my whole mentality, I take my life is always very, I don't know, just try and enjoy it and not to, take yourself too seriously or get, too bogged down by that. But definitely I think use who's around you and use that information around you. And there's always someone out there who's gone through an experience that maybe you haven't, and it's important to take that in and take their perspective into account. Whether that's, I don't know. I think that's my perspective on things. I say that phrase way too much. Sorry, I keep saying that's my perspective on things. I just realized I keep saying it. It's annoying me. Sorry, but that's my perspective on things anyway. Sorry.
I think one thing is that I guess if you start like making your own game, start out as a student team or just like as a hobby project to make a first game. don't necessarily expect that first game to be a huge success, and don't necessarily spend 5 years on that first game, but, you know, make a bunch of things, make small things, and kind of grow as a developer to just learn how things work. Go to game jams. I guess that's an important one. Game jams, online or offline. This year, probably only online. Make a game in 48 hours with alone or with, I don't know, new people you met or with friends, and just afterwards you have made a game, and then you have made one more game, and after, I don't know, 100 games you will start to figure out what you're doing. Maybe, I didn't yet, but I guess that's down the line somewhere.
Yeah.
That's talking.
but I think as well, I think it's one of those things where, like, I think there's so much information out there that it's free that you can access. If you've got a laptop, that's, you know, effectively all you need, really. You can go online and you can find all these resources to make games. The same way me and Henning were talking about earlier about GameMaker. Like, literally, Game Maker was free. I downloaded Game Maker and I just started playing around with it. You know, my art was terrible. Everything was, it was terrible. And I'd spend, you know, an hour making a game and get bored of it, and then just move on to something else. And then I'd spend a week doing something and then move on to something else. But that experience is so cool. Just that kind of very quick kind of prototyping, and just, I think this is the thing. I think there is so much information out there. And if it's accessible to you, then, I mean, it is accessible to you if you have the facilities to obviously have a laptop and have internet connection, which I know I take for granted, I think, as well. But if you have that stuff, then you can go out there and you can find so many tutorials on whether it's Unity, Unreal, GameMaker, or whatever other engines there are and stuff. You can literally just get access to it and find a YouTube video and watch someone talk you through how to start making a game. So I think, you know, if you are hesitant and sort of want to get into things, literally just jump straight into it, start making a game. I think it's much easier than I think people realize, which is, you know, I have no skills whatsoever. I can code a little bit, but I still made some really weird. I made a whole like RE, so religious studies project in the UK. I made a project depicting Moses' life. It was just the most random game ever, but it was. Yeah, I got a really bad grade in it, but it's cool. So I think that's what I'd say. Just jump straight into it. There's nothing stopping you.
Yeah, I would second that. And like, oh
no, please, Dylan, please go ahead, please.
All right. Yeah, I would second that with that. And like, as a young person, just trying to take as many opportunities as you can if you can get them, and like doing camps and clubs and after school programs if you can access those. And as everybody else said, if you don't have access to those kind of programs, or like money is not available, or like they're just not available in your community, like try to get online, like YouTube, I want to say like Reddit, other communities, there's like forums and things that you can talk to. You can, as you said, email professionals, talk to them, and just like try to consume content and meet people is another big one, as we were talking about earlier, like getting networking, so meeting people, like just trying to learn as much as you can, and like just understanding what's happening, I feel like is a big thing.
Yeah, definitely. If you have the opportunity to go to events, whether in real life or online, whether that's monthly meetups in your neighborhoods, you know, festivals, conferences, definitely take up that opportunity. You have such a great potential to meet incredible people. And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that really helped me is don't be afraid to ask for help. People usually, assuming you're not a terrible person, people are usually so open to helping you, especially if you're passionate and you care about this and you want to learn and grow. People will always find time to give you advice or to help you out in whatever way they can. So don't be afraid to ask help. Ask for help. Everyone needs help.
Yeah. I think it's well, go on that point. I think, again, people are so accessible, and sometimes, like, literally just if anyone emailed me, I'd always try and reply if I had something interesting to say back to it. People are so accessible. You know, even if it's just tweeting someone just saying, hey, I've got a problem, I'm just interested in your perspective on it. I think a lot of people will reply. And sometimes people will just miss it because they're so busy, or they have, you know, a million Twitter notifications. But again, people are more accessible than you realize, which I think is a good thing to remember.
One final thing that oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. Something to, I guess one other thing is, if you have the option, volunteer at events, at like conventions and, conventions, conferences and so on. There's always I don't know, something like Gamescom or PAX needs hundreds of volunteers in order to like be operational. And and as one of those, you are at the event, and then you will talk to go to all the events and talk to all the people and so on. And that's how you, I don't know, that's a good way to get this initial kind of like circle of like game industry people you know, and then from there on, it's kind of once you have that, it's like make things a lot easier.
Fully agree. I mean, for me, my career path into the games industry was totally based on volunteering. I volunteered my way into the games industry straight out of high school. Met my first employee, sell me games out of Munich at like a Gamescom. Then a week later at PAX, and they were like, "What's this 14-year-old kid doing on two sides of the Atlantic?" Well, I guess he's passionate. And the one thing I want to say about volunteering, since there's more and more events than ever, and since there's more and more events that very much rely on volunteering to actually be able to pull it off, is it always needs to come with something in return for yourself. Volunteering is fantastic, and many organizations simply cannot afford to pay volunteers. PAX Online, or PAX, is a company with their enforcers on the show floor, luckily do so these days at all of their conferences, as far as I'm aware. And I think that's a great development, but it's understandable that that's not necessarily a possibility for everyone. And that's fine as well, as long as companies on the other side of the spectrum make sure that the volunteers that are offering their free time to them at the end of the day will get something in return. I think a phenomenal example is the Indie Arena booth that does so many things for their volunteers, anything from food and drinks, from networking opportunities, pitching courses. I've been a volunteer for them for many years in my early years in the industry, and they're one of the very good examples of how to do things right for people offering their time.
Yeah, I think as well, I think it's such an interesting point, because I'm exactly the same when it comes to volunteering or doing something for free. It's so important to know your value of your worth and make sure that you're getting paid in some way. As you said, it might not be monetary. I think it's so important for that to happen, because otherwise we create this precedence in this industry where people just do stuff for free and get exploited for that because it's a fun industry. But again, if you get something out of it, it's the best thing. If anyone ever came up to me and said, "I want to do something for free, I want to do this," there's no way I'm letting them do that for free. If they're doing something for me that's beneficial, then I'm paying them for it. And again, as you said, sometimes that's money, sometimes that's about opportunities. I mean, personally, I'd always pay them just because I'm in a situation where I can pay them. But again, I think as long as you get something out of it, then that's all fine. But it's important to know the value of your work, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. I guess we've reached the end of this wonderful panel. Thanks so much to all four of you for joining me today on this digital stage for PAX Online. We've done our closing words so far, but as sort of like a final round, if you want to tell people how they can find you online, your websites, your Twitter handles, if it's not online, just anything that you want to share as sort of like a closing statement. We have 3 minutes to fill. So let's start alphabetically again, and then go from there.
Again, I'm Dylan. I don't really have I do have social media, but I'm not really I guess I don't know, but I don't have that kind of social media. But I would just say, as I said earlier, don't be afraid to talk to people, meet people, ask questions, just follow your passion and see where it takes you, and try to take opportunities when you can get them, and just learn. Learning is a big thing, I feel.
Yeah. So my company called Super Rare Games. So superraregames.com is our website. We always sell sort of indie Switch games, always stuff going on there. My Twitter is Super Rare George. I usually just tweet random things occasionally, every month. And usually it's very nerdy video game stuff. But if you want to follow me for that, then I guess come and see me there. But yeah, I'm not a big social media person.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is Henning. And I guess if you have any questions about how to get into the industry and get started specifically with programming, or even more specifically with shader programming, then sure, feel free to reach out. I don't post much there, but I guess I check every now and then, and I am generally reachable. Yeah.
Yeah, I am on social media. You can find me at just Limpho, hopefully a little bar at the bottom, because it's obviously spelled differently to how it's pronounced. Follow me. There are a lot of hot takes, funny tweets, because my creative director forces me on pain of death to tweet at least once or twice a week. So you can find me there. I'm always happy to answer any questions anyone has, to have any discussions around game development, production. I love talking about production. Thank you all so much for this lovely opportunity. This has been a great panel. Hopefully I get to meet you all in real life one day. Thank you.
Yeah. I would just say that as well. I didn't know any of you going into it, but it's been really lovely. And again, hopefully catch you guys in person.
Yeah, thank you so
Chris,
much. It's an amazing opportunity to meet everybody. It's just nice to see what the industry's like.
this is very wonderful.
We can all go for milkshakes because we've got two teenagers here.
Sounds good. Well, thanks so much. Everyone that's been watching, have a great PAX Online. You can find me online as ChrisWolf_ on Twitter, or check out Floppy Nights, which is a project that we're publishing now on Steam. Please wishlist. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.